bring in Dominique Wilkins, the Hall of Famer, the Hawks vice president of basketball, and 26, close to 27,000 points when it was all said and done. He's broadcasting the Hawks playoff games for Bally Sports, and he joins us now. Neek, good morning. How you feeling?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Were you ever told how your parents came up with Dominique as your name?
Yeah, actually, my dad was in the military. He was in the army for 26 years. But anyway, I was born in Sobo in France, right outside of Paris, and we had a nanny who named me. And basically, she said to my mom, "Look at little Dominique." And she said, "That's not his name." She said, "Well, it should be." And my mom said, "Okay." We'll change his name to Little Dominique.
Really?
But actually, Dominique is my middle name. My first name is Jacques Dominique.
Wow, so you certainly had the French influence there.
Yeah, I do. Can't speak a lick of it, but it's okay.
I was wondering if we came up with a 9-foot rim and had you and Jordan do a dunk contest right now.
It would be the greatest 9-foot dunk contest ever. Because we don't have to jump as high anymore. So that would be fun, actually.
But, I talked to Dr. J about dunking. He said that he can still dunk. He said it's not going up, it's coming down that hurts so much.
I say that all the time. It is not the going up that hurts. Coming down is what's going to kill you, But, I can still dunk as well at ripe age of 61. But, you're going to have some aches and pains later on, though.
Did you ever feel sorry for when you dunked on somebody?
Not an ounce. And that was the most exhilarating feeling that you could ever have, especially when you dunk on big guys. Big guys where it seemed like to get you charged up after you make a great play like that.
Give me the guy you dunked on and you just said, "Man, that is so good."
Well, quite a few. But I would say guys like Patrick Ewing, guys like Bob Lanier, who didn't speak to me for 9 years after I dunked on him one time. Yeah. Robert Parrish and guys like that. I mean, I just really got me off when I would dunk on bigger guys.
Well, you dunked on Bird, didn't you, a few times?
A few times, Probably shouldn't have jumped.
Well, you can tell when guys go up to block a dunk or contest it, and then they start to go up and they realize, I'm starting to come down and you're still going up. This isn't going to end well.
You've seen those situations many times, where you got the great high flyers and you go up and challenge, and when you get in the air, you're like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. And, when you got the great high flyers, man, they have the ability to hang in the air a little bit longer than others. Just a beautiful thing to watch.
We brought up your brother the other day when he was labeled the Jordan stopper. And I felt bad for your brother because you knew that was going to make Michael mad. When you're the Jordan stopper, huh?
You know what? I called my brother when he said that. And I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "You don't want to awaken a sleeping giant? Are you crazy?" And he said, "Hey, he put on his pants like I do." I said, Gerald, if you're a good defensive player, you don't have to talk about it, man. You don't want to get him riled up. Man, I think he averaged like 40 in that series.
Yeah, whenever there was this guy's the next Jordan or this guy is the Jordan stopper, I went, this isn't going to go well. It's not.
And I used to love when guys talk trash, and say things, because I would be so jacked up and ready to play against that guy. He was going to have a long night.
The atmosphere at the Garden last night, like you played at the Boston Garden, in those playoff games with the Celtics, like
exactly.
Just like that environment. What is that like to play in an environment when, the opposing team hates you?
There's no better environment than those hostile environments as an opponent on your court. That's what basketball is all about. That's what competing is all about. I embrace it. And it's a compliment to you as an individual when fans boo you and try to come after you. It's a compliment to you because they know how good you are. And that's the thing that happened to Trae Young. And I said to, the last couple of days, that's just the respect they have for him. If they didn't respect him, they wouldn't say anything.
But also, what is he, 20 years of age? I mean, imagine you're 20. Yeah, I mean, Neek, you're 20 years of age. You're in the Garden. They're saying, F you, Trae Young. I mean, wow.
It's a bit much. I will say that. But at the same time, uh, when you kick somebody's ass, they don't chant as much, you know. Then at the end of the day, you know, when the series over, those same fans say, you know what, we have to give him his respect and his due because he came to play. And so he's one of those young superstars that's embraced it. Don't bother him. You know, he loves it. Matter of fact. So, and that's what great players do. That's what really the good and great players do. They embrace that because that's what competing is all about.
Do you recognize today's NBA?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. You know, and look, we all play in a different time. You know, when I hate when people get to comparing, oh, this era is better, that era is better, this era is more talented. And it's just ridiculous when I hear that stuff. You know, I say if people do their history and go back, you know, when some of the greatest players ever played this game were playing, you know, it was a knockout, drag out type of game where guys just went at each other. It was very competitive. And so we've had our time. You know, it's these guys' times. And so only thing I hate is when they try to discredit us to prove a point.
Yeah, I just wonder who would have benefited the most in today's rules, who you played with.
So, I wish that nobody couldn't touch me. You know, back when I played, you know, I was getting 28, 30 plus in the hand check era, you know, and people ask me all the time, oh, what would you average? I said, I don't know. If you couldn't touch me, I can tell you it'd be over 35 a game, you know, because I love the physical contact. So the fact that they can't touch you like that anymore, it definitely would be beneficial to me.
What's the best performance you ever witnessed?
The best performance I ever witnessed part of was against Michael Jordan. And I never had a player to do this before. I think I had 57 in Atlanta. We go back to Chicago weeks later. And I remember Michael Jordan walks in our locker room before the game. We in suit and tie, haven't gotten dressed yet. He walks in our locker room. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing? You know, so I'm thinking maybe going to the training room or something. So he walks by me, he walks by Kevin Willis, and he gets to Randy Whitman and he slaps him on behind. And he said, lace him up. It's going to be a long night. And turned and walked out. And I'm in shock. I'm like, did he just? And I didn't know what to say. I said, well, you tell that so-and-so Scottie Pippen, I'm going to kick his ass. You know? I didn't know what to say. He had 60. But you know, even though he had 60, it's the way he had it. You know, it was electric, man. I mean, it was incredible to witness.
You know what he was, though, Nick? When we see Kobe was a volume shooter. Mike was pretty economical. Like he made the most of his possessions and his shots.
He was so efficient, as well as being an assassin, a killer out there on the floor. And he wanted to basically take your heart with every possession. That's who he was. I mean, he wasn't a guy without there making friends. My greatest battles that I've had was against Michael. Michael and I are probably the only ones in the history. I mean, I would say throughout our career, through our whole career, we were the only two as foes to average over 30 against one another for a career. I mean, that's how competitive it was.
Do you think we're headed for Lakers Nets?
I wouldn't go that far as of yet, you know, because Lakers still got to get by Phoenix, even though home court has swung back into the Lakers' favor. It's going to be I think that's still going to be a good. It all depends on if Chris Paul is healthy. If he's not healthy, I think it'd be tough for Phoenix.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, because, you know, you got LeBron, you got AD over there. As long as you got those two guys healthy and playing the way they did the other night, it's still, I think, it'd be tough to beat the Lakers.
You okay with these guys joining teams, you know, these super teams?
Well, that's the way it is now. That's the way it is now. You know, the thing is that when we played, I always wanted to try to win for this city in Atlanta. And only way I figured that I can measure my greatness is to play against the greatest players. So no, none of us wanted to join teams. If it happened, it happened. But we didn't, you know, seek teams out because you couldn't do it in those days anyway. Not like that. Things have changed. The players have more control now.
Well, I think one of the first times I remember was when Moses Malone joined Dr. J in Philadelphia. And that felt like a super team. I mean, they already had a talented team, but I think he was a free agent and he joined the 76ers with Doc.
But it wasn't like, you know, it was, you know, public knowledge that he might be going here or going there. It just happened with, a guy ended up in a situation, team had enough money, they moved to another player. The next thing you know, Moses Malone is still out there, hadn't signed, he hadn't decided he wasn't signing with anybody yet. But when the opportunity came up to go to Philly, he went to Philly. And yeah, they had a great team, but yeah, they became a super team when he came there.
Do you still hold a grudge against anybody?
No. I held grudges when I played against guys, and I didn't like certain guys. But now I want to talk to those guys about the way I take that back. Certain guys, some guys I still can't stand. But
give me a couple of names that you don't like.
Well, guys that we hate each other, and funny thing is we ended up playing together for a year, and that was Chuck Person. Man, we fought all the time. I mean, fist fights we've had. And now I end up on the team when I'm like, I'm on this team with a guy I absolutely cannot stand, But after you retire, man, like Karl Malone and I, up to the time we had conversation, we didn't talk to each other over 21 years. We really didn't. From the time he played to the time years after retiring. Now I remember we went to an event and I cracked some corny joke, and Karl Malone family was sitting on one side, my family was sitting on the other side. He said, "Nick, I didn't know you were that funny." And we said, "Yeah, we thought you were a a-hole." And it broke the ice. And Karl Malone, myself, and Clyde Drexler, we're like brothers now. We're close. We're so close, man, because we cherish the times that we competed and played against one another. So we live for those conversations.
Were you okay with Patrick Ewing?
Oh, Pat was a very close friend of mine as well. Loved Patrick Ewing spirit, loved him as a player, respected him a lot. And even to this day, Pat and I, we were very close friends.
Yeah. Well, he had that demeanor on the floor, though. He had
attitude.
Yeah.
He had attitude. But that was the respect that we had for one another. It was an unspoken thing that we didn't have to speak to one another. We didn't have to shake hands. We knew what we were here for.
Well, you have to hate Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and Mahorn, I think everybody in the league hated them.
That's true. They did.
But the funny thing is, man, I talk to Mahorn these days, man, and we laugh about that stuff now. And if you talk to both of those guys, they're really big teddy bears. They really are. But when you put them between the lines, it's like their whole demeanor, it changes. And that's what competitiveness does, But, those guys was some tough, rugged, nasty guys, But, I remember Laimbeer took me out of the air one time. I jumped up, I'm swinging and, punches being thrown. After the game, I see him at a restaurant / lounge. "Hey, Nick, how you doing?" I'm like, "Do you remember you just took me out of the air? You forgot?"
But Laimbeer knew his job. Like yes, he's like an actor. This guy shows up, then becomes a character, and then when he's done, then he walks off, and then he's different.
Yeah, that's who Laimbeer was. It was like an actor in a sense, but his demeanor and his attitude, as far as his focus of the game, was bar none some of the most focused guys I've ever seen. I mean, they were there for one reason, to take your heart, and it was something to experience and compete against. But it made it fun.
It's great to catch up with you as always, Nick. Have fun the rest of this series. Should be pretty spirited, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Pat. Good to see you, man.
That's Dominique Wilkins, the Hall of Famer, the Hawks Vice President of Basketball, and he's working the Hawks playoff games for Bally Sports.